everybody, and welcome back to Dunks and Discussions, an NBA podcast. As always, I am your host, Michael Riley, and today I am joined by a guest, my good friend, Joe Cervantes. Say hello, Joe.
Hello, everybody.
If you don't know who Joe is, I recommend scrolling down on the Spotify and going and looking at those. I think there's some episodes called Net Profits from last season. I'm sure we had some sort of intro in there. You can see our last attempt at an NBA podcast that is technically still this one. But yeah, we'll save the, bio for another time since you've already done it. With that said, we're just going to start as we always do, giving our own little rants on our own teams. I think that makes the most sense. As if you don't know, I'm a Miami Heat fan and a Lakers fan. Joe is a Golden State Warriors fan. I haven't talked a lot about the Warriors, so you're going to get a good Warriors fan perspective. And at this point in the NBA, every NBA team has played somewhere between 18 to 20 games. So we're essentially at a quarter of the way through the NBA season. So we have a pretty solid sample size of data and film and drama to sort through. So I'll get some of the easy out of the way. When it comes to the Lakers, I don't necessarily have a lot of new things to say. I think that they have played slightly above average. And I was expecting much more from them before the season started. I predicted them to be the 2 seed. So they're playing under my expectations, but I'm pretty happy with the results that I've seen. LeBron and AD are continuing to carry the load offensively, but I think Austin Reeves going to the bench has unlocked his new role. He's found a new role and he's thriving in it. And Rui is hurt, and we have not had Jared Vanderbilt back. I'm very excited to get Vanderbilt back because I feel like the Lakers' best success is going to come from a starting lineup of D'Angelo Russell, Cam Reddish, LeBron James, Jared Vanderbilt, and Anthony Davis. And we have not seen that yet. And I don't know when we're going to see that, but that is my expectation for the starting lineup going forward. We'll see if Cam Reddish keeps playing well, if that keeps up. But that's what I'm seeing on the Lakers. Now I'm going to go to the Heat real quick before I let Joe tackle the Warriors. Heat, I have a little more to say because, Lakers games recently, I haven't gotten to see them. I've kind of just had to be a box score watcher. I've been watching some recent Miami Heat games. Some of their wins, some of their losses. I watched the first Pacers game they had recently. They played them back-to-back where they won. Did not watch the second game where they lost, but I did not expect them to lose. No Halliburton on the Pacers end, no Bam on the Heat end. Still thought the Heat would get it done. They didn't. The Miami Heat have nearly the same record as the Lakers. They're pretty close. I think they are 11-9. But I don't feel as happy with the Miami Heat's 11-9 as the Lakers 12-9. I can forgive the Lakers taking time to mesh because this is almost an entirely new group of guys, since February. The Miami Heat have essentially the same team from last year. Kind of the same team from the last 2 years. And injuries have been tough. Tyler's been hurt, and now Bam and Jimmy have been missing games, but I still expected them to come out swinging a little harder. And then they went on that win streak. They did. I don't know if you saw that, Joe, but they were 9 straight wins, something like that earlier. But I don't know. It hasn't been the same recently. The first game against the Pacers, I was surprised. Bam got hurt, and he's the defensive anchor. When he goes away, as we saw in the next game, the defense goes away. But Jimmy played that game. Jaime Jaquez, he's been talked to death, but I love this guy. Don't tell Cam. I know Cam hates him, but I love this guy. And Miami Heat fans are a little out of pocket. I've seen some Jaime Jaquez Jr. greater than Wemby tweets. That's a little far. I think that's a little far, but he's been very good. But that first game against the Pacers, they stuck true, and they were able to score 140 points. The Miami Heat scored 143 points. How did they do that? They couldn't do that to save their lives in the playoffs last year. Still made the finals, but they couldn't do that. So this team has scoring weapons, and when Tyler Hero comes back, playing with Jaime Jaquez, if Bam can stay healthy, if Jimmy can, stay healthy and, turn up his motor earlier than the playoffs, I feel pretty good. The only thing the Heat are missing is another point guard because Kyle Lowry's their essentially only real point guard on the team. Drew Smith got hurt recently, who already was a question mark of a backup point guard. So Tyler Hero really needs to come back. We need another like ball handling guard. But I don't feel as happy with the Miami Heat because I'm expecting very high things from them in the Eastern Conference this year. I'm expecting high things, like great things from both teams, but I don't know. I'm holding Miami to a higher standard right now, and they're falling short. But they'll figure it out. All right, that's my quick rant on my two teams. Now let's hear about a team I haven't talked too much about because I'm low key a hater most of the time. The Golden State Warriors.
Understandably so. There was a little run that happened there in the 2010s that I think warrants a lot of hate and lingering hate.
Especially for LeBron fans.
Yeah. I actually had a couple questions I was going to ask you. As far as the Lakers go right now, like, I think top to bottom the roster's pretty solid. Like even when you start to get deep into the bench, there's still some great names there. Are you thinking that the Lakers need to look to upgrade, like maybe add a third star in theory, or do you think the best scenario is running the course with this team, having them mesh, and then by the end of the season, hopefully they're playing well enough to where just having LeBron and AD is enough star power to kind of, you know, carry that train to the championship.
I 100% believe they should just run the course. Like, unless some crazy star, like crazy third star, were to become available that seemed plausible and made more sense than, Russell Westbrook did. I don't see any reason why you don't run the course. They're looking pretty good. The West is a gauntlet, but they're 12-9 and they're right around where a bunch of other teams are. The Kings are 11-7, Suns 12-8, Mavs 11-8. They're right there with a bunch of teams. They could very well just be the 4 seed by next week. So I think they just run the course. There's no reason to risk it and go for a third star because the last time they did that, obviously, kind of set them back for a whole season.
Yeah, it looks like, I mean, D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves have obviously, you said Austin Reeves went to the bench, and that role has been great for him. It looks like right now, like they're both playing great though. I agree with you. I don't see any reason to go out and try to trade for somebody else, especially like you're kind of imagining that Cam Reddish is probably going to start putting out a bit of a higher scoring output as the season goes.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, Christian Wood, you would hope the same thing. Um, yeah, it's a great roster, but I will say it is pretty scary. The teams you named that are around the same area that they are, I would say that those teams are all better than the Lakers.
The West is just crazy this year. Just like last year, there are a lot of good teams. So, and I don't think that's fair. I think that is very fair to say because those other teams, I'm pretty sure a couple of them have beaten the Lakers. Mavs beat them. Actually, the Lakers have beaten the Suns twice, but we'll see what happens. You know, they play this week.
I mean, you got 10 legitimate teams in the West.
Yeah.
And then as for the Heat, um, is there anybody on the market as far as a point guard that you want them to bring in, or
See, I haven't heard
you've
very many.
seen, or
You know what? I mean, I don't mind the idea of bringing Goran Dragic back, but I don't know if that puts the Heat over the hump. I think that's just more of a morale. I would love to see him type of thing. I haven't really seen like many names, many like ways or people to even go after currently. So I want Tyler Hero to come back, and I think the mix of him and Kyle Lowry, and the fact that honestly that Jaime Jaquez, they give him the ball and they let him like run the point every like couple possessions. It's kind of cool actually. And then obviously Jimmy or Bam can bring it up. So they have the ability to get the ball up. A lot of teams have the solidified backup point guard. Um, and honestly, in my head, I don't know how old Goran Dragic is, and relying on two 38-plus-year-old point guards doesn't sound amazing. I wouldn't hate him as a backup point guard.
no, absolutely not. Yeah, and as you said, it would be a great morale boost for the team. I mean, just looking at it right now with Tyler Hero there, they have three players that are going to add that can average 20 points a game. Duncan, if he's on, is going to be great. He's going to be efficient. It just seems like really, if you could fill in that point guard role, you really you have some championship aspirations there. This is just a great roster. If
I,
Kevin Love starts playing a little bit more, I know he's like a bench guy and he's not playing a ton of minutes, but if he can start being a little bit more efficient in his role, I think that's also going to help to kind of
God,
finish
yeah,
out the season.
I loved Kevin Love on the Heat. I know he hasn't. I don't know if he's had some good games, had some bad games, but I just love him being on the Heat. But you used to didn't you used to listen to Duncan Robinson's podcast? You used to kind of like mess with
I
Duncan
did.
Robinson a little bit. Yeah, have you? God, he has improved so much since 2020.
Like
He
as a defender too, yeah.
as a defender, he as an attacker, he drives to the hole, he cuts to the basket. He's like kind of a slasher now. He has a little bit of a floater game. If he starts going towards the basket, it used to be he's going to kick it out. And the other team knew it. They were like, we don't even need to try to jump to block it because he's not going to shoot it. Now, when Duncan Robinson cuts to the basket, he is a like serious threat. He has had some up and under moves, some like reverse layups. He is crazy good at basketball now. Like at a way he wasn't like 3 years ago. He's improved while still getting his shooting, and I love to see it. I love seeing him play well. It sucks we lost Max Strus, but Duncan playing like Duncan is awesome. Miami runs on Duncan.
Miami runs on Duncan. Yeah, yeah, losing Masters was definitely a big hit, but yeah, seems like Duncan is filling back that role, and he's sure getting paid to do it. So,
He is. He is.
all right, so on to the Warriors. To start this year, it's been pretty ugly. Obviously, right now we are the 11th seed in the West. As you said, we're a quarter of the way through the season. I mean, in 10 games, the Warriors' outlook could be looking a lot better, so no need to panic or anything. But there may be some reason to panic. Currently, Klay Thompson just looks like he just doesn't really have it anymore. It kind of even looked like that in the playoffs last year. Klay just didn't really seem like he's like somebody you could count on for the long haul. He didn't seem like somebody like, okay, well we can count on Klay to give us his 24 a game on efficient shooting. He's gonna hit his threes. He's gonna play great defense. Like Klay is like the last thing you need to worry about. I mean, he's the second scoring option on this team, averaging 16 a game on extremely inefficient shooting. Um, to me, right now, it just doesn't seem like we have enough of a scoring output, which is crazy to say on the Warriors. But Kaminga, to me, is not attacking the way he needs to. It's like weird right now with this team. It's like Moses Moody and Kaminga have been on this team for how long now? And in my view, Steve Kerr has not given either of them any type of vote of confidence that they need to like take over. And their minutes show that too. I really would think that on this roster right now, as it stands, Kaminga would be the one taking over. He's the one you should be looking to get 17, 18 a game, like making real strides. And he's just basically the same as he was his rookie year. Comes in, can maybe get you double digit points on relatively efficient shooting, and he's just kind of another role player. Chris Paul, I think, has been a great addition. I think the trade for Jordan Poole, as it stands right now, is looking pretty good. At the time, I was pretty upset about it. You trade a young you trade a young guard who was one of your leading scorers, who still has a ton of potential and helped get you your last ring for a point guard that has this could potentially be his life. If he retired at the end of this year, nobody would be surprised, kind of thing. It's looking like he opens up the. It looks like there is a chance to where this offense can look incredible. But the problem is everybody is just sitting there watching Steph play right now. There's nobody else taking the initiative. It's like, I don't know, the ball movement that the Warriors are predicated on is just not the same. They're still high up in assists per game and everything like that, but right now that offense is just not moving the way it normally does, and it's sad because the Chris Paul Steph Curry pick and roll is like really nice, and in a different year on a different team with different players, this offense could really be flourishing. Um, I think potentially some sort of trade needs to happen. I saw something. I saw a trade idea the other day that was Wiggins and Kaminga and like a pick for Pascal Siakam, which I don't know if the Raptors would do that, but certainly something to that effect seems like the solution to me. I don't really understand what happened to Andrew Wiggins. Last year, he missed most of the year for personal reasons and came back, and it was like he was just kind of not the same. But it was like, oh, well, he missed so much of the season. It makes sense. Like, he's just rusty. He's not in basketball shape. Blah, blah, blah. You could give him a million excuses, but this year, I mean, he just looks done. Like, he doesn't, he's not really. He's not really playable right now, but they don't have anybody else to take those minutes. And so right now, I would say the outlook for the Warriors season is just pray you can make the playoffs with the play-in, unless some sort of trade happens. But what have you seen?
Yeah, as you were talking, I was kind of thinking about something, and I went to go check and look at the Warriors roster a little bit to just like kind of make sure my point makes a little bit of sense. And I feel like the Warriors, especially this year, and at times, have multiple players who multiple like players whose job are not to score, and like sometimes we'll play them both at the same time. Draymond and Gary Payton might be on the floor at the same time,
And
and
Looney and
neither.
Chris Paul.
Yeah, and Looney and Chris Paul, and those guys, their primary jobs are not to score. And honestly, sometimes the way Moody and Kaminga get used, maybe not this year. Kaminga is supposed to score, but sometimes Moody even comes in. It's like he's not supposed to score. And in the past, that always worked because at the end of the day, you had the Splash Brothers who would both produce, and they're getting you at least like 50 a game. And last couple of years, you had Wiggins, and obviously, as you just said, Wiggins and Clay are regressing. And okay, when it comes to Clay, I feel like what we might be seeing with Clay is just the natural regression. Like maybe not. Maybe he'll figure it out and start having just like a really good year like his prior years. But this dude missed 2 years because of pretty like like I don't know, devastating injuries, weren't they? Like bad? Wasn't one of them? What were they? Achilles,
ACL
ACL,
and
or something?
Achilles.
Yeah.
Yeah, back
So
Achilles on the chip, and then he was rehabbing to come back the next year and towards Achilles right before the season.
yeah, so it's like he's already played 2 full seasons since then. They won a championship. Was that the first season he played again? And then last year they had a whole season. This is going on his third year since then. Event, everybody doesn't play like LeBron and Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. Guys usually get worse right around this time. And maybe that's just what's happening because at a certain point it gets hard. It's you just hear NBA players talk about it so much. Your speed goes down when your age goes up, and your shot making ability, like you might not get just enough lift on the shot, so it feels different than it did. I don't, 3 years ago for Clay, and maybe that's why he's missing. So it could just be the age getting to him. And I agree. I think some sort of trade is going to have to be made. I imagine it's going to revolve around, like you said, probably Paul and Kaminga. But social media would have you telling you that they should try and trade Clay. I don't even know if that's. I don't even know like what that would ever look like. And I don't think they're going to do it. But I don't even know what that would look like. But I don't know. I think they look good. I think that they're going to have no trouble making the plan. Okay. I guess right now they're on the outside looking in, but I think they're going
I'd
to have no trouble
imagine
making.
they'll take the Rockets spot probably,
I agree.
but
I agree.
even then, that's not something to hang your hat on, because I would pretty confidently say that the nine other teams above them are at this point a better team. And I would say if you look at the outlook for the rest of the season, barring I would say Zion staying healthy for the Pelicans, which is a big if,
hmm
those teams are all probably better than the Warriors right now as it stands.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. And I think their biggest thing, yeah, they just need someone to step up consistently. And yeah, they're really feeling the effects of they lost a 20-point scorer in Jordan Poole. And they obviously swapped him with Chris Paul, but different roles. Um, so you lose like a bucket getter there, and then another bucket getter in Clay isn't quite getting the buckets he used to, and another bucket getter in Andrew Wiggins isn't getting the buckets like he used to. So they're just having trouble. I feel like keeping up with some of these other teams who have a whole bunch of scoring threats. So they just need some form of consistency, and I think they'll figure it out. But uh, yeah, if Clay or Wiggins or Kaminga can't, it's gonna be a long year. It's gonna be a long year for Steph. That's who it's gonna be a long year for.
Yeah, he's had a few of those in recent memory, unfortunately.
He has, and he's going off again this year. He's going crazy.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on Clay. I don't think that this is like I don't think he's in a slump.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I
Because
think
it
that the
did look like it
Warriors
last year.
the Warriors didn't pay him. I think that's
Yeah,
all you need to know. Like, 'cause I think they want to stand by their guys. Like, I think they like this idea. Like, they want the Splash Brothers to play forever. But even they were like, it just is not a good move to pay Clay. And then obviously his contract's up at the end of the year.
yeah. There was
They're not gonna trade him. They're not like who's gonna trade for Clay
exactly that was my thing. It was like, I mean,
in the
when
least
you,
disrespectful way. But
I was like, they honestly, I mean, I think they have a pretty nice organization, so I don't think they would like screw him over. But I was like, would they trade him? They're trying to win. They would trade him. Just would anyone want him? Is the main question.
he's
But
making a lot of money. I mean, maybe if you could figure out something mutual for a team, if they like really wanted to get rid of a player and they'll like take Clay on kind of deal, maybe. But
yeah,
it's just yeah, it's gonna have to be a situation in which you're sending picks to them to like basically make up for the fact that they have to take Clay's contract
hmm
in a way.
but or he could start picking it up, and that wouldn't surprise me either because he is a very good shooter. And if he just, I guess, if he just sort of leaned into the Ray Allen on the Miami Heat route of just only shooting these spot up jumpers, and like that's just like all he does. No more driving, no more nothing like that. That could be his new thing.
Yeah,
I feel like
he's still getting up 13 shots a game. I don't think he's seeing that at all right now. But
yeah,
what I do agree with you.
yeah,
On a positive note, though, Dario Saric. I mean,
oh yeah,
11, 6, and 3 on efficient shooting.
yeah.
He's
He's been
just
great.
he's yeah, that was a great pickup. I miss Dante DiVincenzo
Oh
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
I think that was a tough loss, but I think we just could not afford him.
yeah. He's helping the Knicks out a lot. Speaking of Knicks, we should probably talk about some other teams now.
Let's do it.
This week is the finale of the in-season tournament. We are down to 8 teams. We're in the quarterfinals on Monday, December 4th. 2 games will be played, and then 2 games the next day on the Tuesday. There will be a day break on Wednesday where all of the non-in-season tournament teams have a game. Then on Thursday, we return for 2 semifinal games in Vegas. And then Friday, the other 22 teams play their second makeup game. And then on Saturday is the in-season tournament finale. If you listened last week, I gave my like 20-minute episode prediction of the in-season tournament. I went through what I thought each game would be. This time we're just going to do a little less. I'm going to have Joe. I'm going to give him the quarterfinals games, and he's going to pick each of the winners. And then I'm going to also ask Joe to select who he thinks is going to be walking away with the NBA Cup. Joe, before I get started, did you watch a lot of the in-season tournament games, like the knockout rounds, or like the group play? I mean, did you watch a lot of the games and like the courts and stuff, and see the courts?
I certainly saw some of the courts.
Yeah.
I did not watch the games though.
Okay, you didn't really see any.
Mm.
I yeah, I watched a good few of the Tuesday and Fridays. Um, Honestly, I liked it. I liked it a lot. I think that uh, I feel like the fishing for points at the end of the game. Like at first, I liked it, then I didn't like it because like the Celtics got mad about it, and then they went like the next game and then did that thing where they hack a Drummond because they had to get more points, but they already had more points than they needed, so they were kind of hack a Drummonding because I think they just wanted to be annoying because they were annoyed the last time. I can't remember what happened to them in the game before that, but I don't know. It was getting weird. There was a lot of discourse on should like DeMar DeRozan was getting all pissy about, oh, it's disrespectful. At the end of the game, shouldn't be scoring, and
Saw
I
that.
it was just there was a lot of weird stuff when it comes to that. But the games were fun. I feel like the games were pretty competitive, and there were I'd say multiple games that felt at least close to playoff level, and you just don't normally get those in November. At least the last like 3 seasons, you don't get that in November. And this year we did, and that was very fun. Um, as for the 8 teams that are in it, um, Celtics, Pacers, Pelicans, Kings, Suns, Lakers, Knicks, Bucks. When it comes down, I know I didn't tell you I was going to ask these, but these came to my head as we were going. What do you think of the 8 teams that made it? Like, or were you expecting? I don't know, like is it what you were expecting? Was it a little different than what you were expecting? Like, what kind of did you know? Like what when it comes to the 8 teams, what did you expect the 8 teams more to look like?
Well, certainly the absence of the Nuggets sticks out to me immediately,
I agree with that.
as something. Um, Outside of that, as far as the Western Conference goes, I may be a little bit surprised that the Thunder didn't make it, but I mean, not particularly. I probably would have subbed in the Nuggets for the Suns, and what like my thoughts would have been, and probably have
Mm,
the Lakers at the 4 seed and the Nuggets at the 1. So I'd say that's definitely the big thing that sticks out to me on the Western Conference side of things. On the Eastern Conference side of things, I think maybe Philly not being in there is a little surprising, but honestly, I think that those 4 teams make sense to me based on how
yeah, I
the season's
agree.
gone.
The East makes me mad because the Heat, they like had a spot all wrapped up. They were in the Knicks game. They were up on the Knicks by like 20, and then they let the Knicks come back and beat up at the end, and then they choked against the Bucks next game. It's like the Heat. I don't even want to get into it. I just did, but I don't want to get into it more. Um, yeah, no, I agree. I think that looking at it now, I saw a tweet about this, so I'm kind of stealing this, but the top 3 seeds in the West currently, none of are the Timberwolves, Thunder, and Nuggets, and none of them are in the in-season tournament quarterfinals, which is kind of interesting. You'd expect maybe the top seeds to be there, but I think it's been good, cool, and I am glad that all of the teams. I said this, I think, last week. I'm glad all of the teams are at least good. I'm glad that the Pistons didn't. Obviously, the Pistons only have 2 wins, but I'm glad the Pistons didn't randomly pop off, or like the Charlotte Hornets or something. Or yeah, I'm just glad we didn't have to see some like aggressively mid teams make the quarterfinals, but we didn't. We got some good games. So now I'll go through and I'll let you pick your winner. I'll start. We'll start in the game Celtics versus Pacers.
Celtics versus Pacers. This is kind of a weird. I feel like this is a weird reason to pick them, but I'm gonna go with the Pacers. I think the Pacers right now, and especially Tyrese Halliburton, just based on kind of quotes he's given and everything, like he's just, he says he's done. He's just done being a loser. Like I think right now, the way the Pacers are playing, I think they could be a little bit better on the defensive end for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. But like I think they're just kind of playing like their hair is on fire a little bit. Like they are just foot on the gas, 100%. I think this play-in, I think this tournament kind of means a lot to them. This is how the Pacers winning this tournament is gonna put them on the map, kind of thing. I think the Celtics are just a very very good team that made it. I think the Celtics are probably the better team. I think the Pacers probably really really want to win this tournament.
Yeah, hey, it's one game. Anything can happen. I
Hmm.
will say that when I was doing my picks, I picked the Celtics to win the whole thing. So we're very different already. Don't ask me why. Well, okay, fine. I'll tell you. It's because I didn't want to pick the Lakers to win. Okay, I pick the Lakers every time they win and they lose. So I wanted to pick someone else to win, so I can maybe feel some joy. I agree. I think the Pacers are a very good team, and I just watched them very recently. They score points so quickly. I will look down from a
Easily.
game and I look back up, and it's like they have 5 more points, and I'm going, "What? What just happened?" That's how quickly they do it, and I feel like they are a tenacious defensive team, but yeah, they're not that strong of a defensive unit. But hey, they don't care. They can outscore anyone, so they could totally beat the Celtics. I see that. Next game would be the New Orleans Pelicans play the Sacramento Kings.
I am going to take the Sacramento Kings. I think the Kings are. I mean, just based on playing them last year in the playoffs. I mean, that series was ridiculous. I think the Kings can go toe to toe with any team in basketball. I think De'Aaron Fox can go toe to toe with any star in basketball. I think the Kings have the tools to be able to guard the Pelicans. Um, Brandon Ingram, Zion, obviously always going to be issues. Brandon Ingram, I do not believe is shooting particularly well from three. Um, so if they're able, I would say if they're, I think they can guard the Pelicans. I think they can kind of run them off the floor a little bit, almost as the same with the Pacers. I wouldn't be surprised if the Pelicans won necessarily, but I think the Kings are just the better team. Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox, both just being kind of the both being the point guards of the offense, I think is it's almost kind of unstoppable a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I wholeheartedly agree. I had also picked the Kings. I don't have much different to add. I agree. What I will say is I know that these two teams did play recently. Well, recently being a few weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, and the Pelicans did blow them out of the water. But I believe this game is going to be in Sacramento, so it's a light the beam worthy type of night. And I agree. I think when the Kings are rolling, these past 2 years, they are genuinely one of the toughest teams to stop and to beat. So I could see the Kings winning this whole tournament easily. Reigning Mr. Clutch, De'Aaron Fox is that guy.
Yes, he is.
Next game would be the Phoenix Suns versus the Los Angeles Lakers.
I am going to take the Lakers. If the Suns had a healthy Bradley Beal, I think that it would be a little bit more of a conversation. But as you said, the Lakers have already beat them twice. I think they've kind of got their number. I think LeBron really wants to win this tournament, as is everybody on the Lakers. I mean, they've been on fire in the tournament.
They
um,
have.
they're playing hard. They clearly want to win all the games. I think I think this is a good tool for them to come together as a roster and as a team and kind of propel themselves forward, moving forward post tournament. I think that I just don't know. I think the Lakers' biggest problem is that maybe they don't have quite enough scorers. But I think the Suns kind of have that same issue also. I mean, they have really, really like they're both very top heavy teams. I just like the Lakers a little bit more top to bottom.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Yeah, there's obviously plenty of worlds where the Suns win, assuming
Mhm.
both Booker and Durant play. But I'm obviously taking the Lakers. This is one in LA. I'm not always when it comes to playoff time. I'm not always a huge they beat them in the regular season type of guy. But I don't know something about this in season tournament. I feel like that could matter. Because we're a month. We're still effectively barely a month into the season. It's like 5 weeks, 6 weeks. So it just feels so early. It's like they just played each other. Like they should be able to beat them, but at the same time, the Suns they're pissed. They probably want to win. I think D'Angelo Russell has at least recently been a pretty solid third scorer for the Lakers team, and I think that and if Reeves continues to do his thing on the bench, I think that's what could push them over the top of the Suns as well.
I mean, Reeves isn't maybe a particularly elite scorer, but him giving you 14 or 15 a game is great, especially with him being the fourth scorer on the roster.
Exactly, especially if it's coming off the bench. Like 14 to 15 starting is obviously a good thing, but like 14 to 15 off the bench is almost like a whoa,
Hmm.
off the bench, you know. And then the final game of the quarterfinals is the New York Knicks versus the Milwaukee Bucks.
I'm absolutely taking the Bucks. I think the
Yeah,
Knicks are a great team. Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle are a hell of a one-two punch. Better than I would have honestly thought. They played great last season too, and they're carrying it on. They were even great 2 years ago. I think Tom Thibodeau's just been he's been
I
a
think it
good
was
coach
like
for them.
4 years ago with a third. 3 years ago they were kind of like but it was like the year before that when they made the playoffs, 2021.
Yep, yeah, they're like I want to say they're like the sixth seed maybe.
I think that might have been the five, and they played the Hawks as the four
Oh,
because
yep,
then the
yep,
winner played Philadelphia, who's the one.
yep. And they Yeah, I mean they play hard. They are a great team. Bucks. I mean the Bucks are just. I'm not. You're not going to see me picking against the Bucks in a lot of games.
Yeah.
Dame and Giannis is. It's great. I mean, right? They've obviously they've kind of fallen off the cliff a little bit on the defensive end. I think for pretty clear and obvious reasons. But
Hmm.
overall, the Bucks are the Bucks to me are the best team in this entire pool.
Yeah, I also picked the Bucks. I just really want to see the Bucks and Celtics play, you know, and we all want to see them play in the playoffs, but there's the playoffs aren't until April. This is like a fake playoffs kind of. It's like a pretend playoffs that still matters. So I want to see them playing it. It'll be like a preview game. That means more than a normal regular season game. They always NBA players, and sports players, they always try to tell you they're like, nah, this is just another game. This ain't no other game. This is serious. This has money on the line. So
Yeah,
they can't say that this time. This would mean something. So I want to see it. But also I do agree. I think the Bucks are a better team. And I also agree that the Knicks have surprised me. Well, no, they've been about as good as I expected them to be. Which is near the top of the Eastish, number 5.
yeah, and like the tough part too with like picking the games is all honestly all these teams are really good.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the Knicks maybe stand out is a little bit of an outlier, but honestly, I mean the Pacers, yeah, they're the number 2 seed in the tournament, but their record isn't exactly amazing either.
Yeah,
So
so let me go through this real quick. So you picked the Pacers, you
Pacers,
picked the Kings, you
Kings,
picked the Lakers,
mm,
and you picked the Bucks.
yep.
So then, who of those 4 teams then is going to win the first ever NBA Cup?
Okay, I won't go into depth, but I will say that I think the Bucks are gonna beat the Pacers, and I think the Kings will beat the Lakers. I won't go into any more on that. So at least you know what the championship is in my mind, and I.
That makes it a Kings Bucks
Yep,
championship. Is that
yep,
am I correct?
yep.
We had a similar championship. I think I had Kings Celtics.
Okay, okay, yeah. Then you have the Bucks losing to the Celtics.
Yeah,
I I'm going to go with the Kings. I'm gonna go with the Sacramento Kings as the first
I
in-season tournament winner.
love that pick. I love it so much because I can see it happening. Man, I hope they don't disappoint and lose to the Pelicans, but I could totally see that
Yeah, I mean,
happening.
I
I would
truthfully
love it. I
can
love Sabonis.
I can see the Kings winning the finals. So I
Hmm.
think right now I think this would be a kind of a great way to just reestablish themselves as like, yeah, the Warriors kind of got us one last time, like in this previous playoffs, but like we're here and we're here to
Okay,
stay for the long
I,
haul.
I would be happy. I would be happy for the fans of Sacramento, and I would be happy for the city of Sacramento. But if the Sacramento Kings were to win the NBA Finals, I would be very upset. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Again, very happy for them. I know they suck. They've sucked for a long time, and it would be very nice for them to win. Would not make me happy. I'm like that. Just means that
Why
the teams I want to win.
specifically?
I guess it would depend on how they got there. It would
Because I was kind of
depend.
thinking they're probably going to go to the Lakers or the Warriors,
Like
depending,
if oh yeah, I mean, are you
pretty
kidding?
much unavoidable.
Yeah, you know. I mean, there's a world where it's okay, but if they win, that means the Lakers and the Heat didn't win, and I don't want that world. So, that's just how it is. All right, well, that's the in-season tournament. It's going to be over, the first one ever, in just under a week. We're going to have a winner. But I said this last week. I don't think the effects of the in-season tournament are going to be over right then and there. I think as the season goes on, uh, I don't know. By the time playoffs roll around, the discussion of it is going to come back up again because it'll be, I don't know, who knows. If the Pelicans miss the playoffs, it'll be the like, whoa, well, one of the 8 teams didn't even make the playoffs. So is this a good idea? Or God forbid if like 2 of the teams miss playoffs, or if they all make it, but then they all are first round exits. There's a discussion there. I think there's going to be narratives had past this week, but we will have a champion, and we'll see what happens. I will say, winning the cup does pave the way for if the Kings were to win it, say just because you picked them, and then have a first round exit. There's a narrative right there. Well, what did that even mean? They were first round exit. I said the same thing about the Lakers. So I'm very interested into what happens with the NBA Cup past this next week. But I'm very excited for the games as well.
You said that the players seem to be playing a lot harder, right? Like
Oh yeah,
there seem to be a noticeable difference. That's going to be tough because like later in the season when you're like looking back in hindsight, people probably aren't even going to mention that or remember that. But in
oh you're
theory,
so
that was really the entire point of the end season tournament was
yeah.
to have
Honestly, you're right.
meaningful regular season games.
Yeah, I agree. Up next, we have uh, a topic that I don't know if either of us are super well versed on this team, but Zach Lavine of the Chicago Bulls is being thrown around in trade rumors because let's be honest, we all know the Chicago Bulls need to blow it up. That's just what's got to happen. At the very least, something needs to change, and it probably needs to be Zach. Problem: no one seems to want him. Literally, no one. There's no market for him. Like the Miami Heat, they're like, nah. The freaking who else? The Lakers. They're like, we would rather have DeRozan, and it's just like that. It's weird. It's weird because I feel like when Zach Lavine got to the Bulls and first got there and started playing well, people were like, wow, this guy's really good. He could become a very like a cornerstone for a franchise. And then I saw someone describe him recently as a worse Bradley Beal. And considering like Bradley Beal is already like a third, he's a very good third option, but he's like a third option on one of the better teams in the West. It's like, I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily what you want to be hearing as a GM when you're like, well, Zach Levine's making a lot of money. I don't know if I want to trade for someone who's making a lot of money, but it's like a worse version of a already kind of third tier player on a championship contender. So, I don't know. I'll start by asking you, Joe. Would you want to see him on the Warriors?
Absolutely. Specifically, I think in the Warriors case,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they could work that
I
out,
feel like that would make sense if the Warriors could get Zach. I just don't see many other spots for him that work kind of as well as that one could.
yeah, I mean, I would absolutely agree with you on that. I think that it makes sense for both sides. I just don't. I mean, maybe if the Bulls look at Moody or Kaminga as a valuable asset and they're willing to take Wiggins or Clay
My guess is they'll
as
really want to pick. I don't know what the Warriors picks are like.
I don't know either, but I am trying to think back and I don't remember them trading a bunch of picks for anybody. So I would
I
imagine
agree.
they're pretty standard. Probably have their 1 and 2 going forward most years. They probably would want to pick, but maybe I mean I don't really care about picks in basketball, especially if the Warriors being the team they are. They're picking in the 20s or later anyways every year. It doesn't. I would trade the pick certainly to get
Mm-hmm.
him. I it's kind of it's I think right now what we're seeing with Zach Lavine and there not being a trade marker for him is a symptom of them renegotiating the CBA and the way the contracts work and the way the luxury tax works and the way teams can build with their max contracts because a few years back you want to pay 3 guys a max. Sure, that kind of sucks, sets you back a little bit, but you can pay those guys, maybe give a couple mid-level exceptions, have some guys that you maybe already have their bird rights. You can build a roster with 3 max guys with depth. It's possible. We saw it done. Nowadays, I don't know with the current CBA that that's going to really be something that's realistic. I think the Suns basically were like, let's just give it a go. But I don't see any other team in basketball right now attempting that. So I think that's what it is. Is if you only have one star, you might not be good enough to want to add Zach Lavine to your team because you don't even think that's going to put you over the top. And if you have a second star and you're actually good enough to bring in a guy like Zach Lavine, you probably just don't have the money to do it.
Money. Yeah, that makes sense. God, I kind of forgot about that. There was just a whole new like update to the whole new collective bargaining agreement. I kind of forgot about that. I also forgot that there's also I don't know how much this would affect Zach Levine's situation. The TV deal I believe is coming up at the end of not this season but maybe next 24-25 season. I don't know if it's like their I think if yeah they're like ESPN deal maybe at least. So I don't know. There are some different changes that are affecting money wise in the NBA. I guess I didn't really consider that. I tend to forget that basketball isn't the only reason that a lot of these decisions are made. A lot of it is that moolah. But
I mean, they really took they took a lot of the freedom away from teams that are just willing to spend all the money. Like what the Warriors did in their like last championship. I don't think that's ever going to happen again. They were paying everybody, even if you weren't like a superstar. I mean, everybody was getting paid. Then they paid Jordan Poole again the next year. I don't think that yeah, I don't think that style is going to be sustainable. Nor honestly, I think one other thing about the CBA too is just going to create for better basketball. I mean, look at this season and like look at the standings. So many teams are close. So many teams are talented. I mean, look at a team like I don't know, like the Cavs or the Clippers. Sure, in theory, they're probably not going to win the championship. Top to bottom, they have very, very quality rosters with quality benches, and I think that CBA kind of forced teams. It almost forced a more balanced NBA. But I mean, yeah, back on Zach Lavine. What would you think about him going to the Lakers or the Bulls, or not the Lakers or the Bulls, the Lakers or the Heat? Probably not. He
um,
probably wouldn't go to the Heat, but
when it
say Lakers
comes
a little
to the
more likely.
Lakers, I did say this earlier. Um, I don't really want them to get a third star. The Lakers are okay without the third star for now. And while Zach Lavine would be kind of nice, I think the Bulls have already said they really want Austin Reeves. And it's like, I know it seems weird. I kind of just would rather have them keep Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves' contract that he signed this past summer was, I feel like, like fairly team friendly for the value that he's continuing to put in. I don't need him on the Lakers right now. Like I said, I'm optimistic about their 12-9. The Miami Heat, I also don't want him on that team because I feel like Tyler Hero provides everything Zach Lavine provides. And Tyler Hero was younger. And when Tyler Hero was playing this season, he was performing at arguably a better level than Zach Lavine was at this season. So I feel like we already have Zach Lavine at home. So I don't think the Heat really need Zach Lavine. I've seen a lot of Heat fans discuss if they need DeMar. I don't know. I also don't know how I love that fit. Um, but I think I'm in consensus with the majority of the NBA community when I would like prefer to have probably DeMar on my team right now than Zach. And I don't know why. I feel like Zach. Maybe
I
that's a
don't. I
disrespect to
see.
Zach Lavine's
I don't feel
game
that way for
because
some reason.
Zach Lavine is a. I don't know what his if the numbers support that, but like he's a good shooter. He can hit threes. DeMar can't. But I think maybe it's just a. I think when players and the NBA community see guys play very well for a long time but do no winning, they just sort of forget. They don't care anymore. They're like, okay, cool, you were playing well, but you didn't do any winning. And I think that might be what's happening with Zach. It's like, yeah, you average 24 a game every year, but like the Bulls usually suck. So maybe that's why. I'm just trying to think about it because you know, again, there were times where people were looking at him like teams should trade for this guy. He's really good, and now there's no market. It is a little interesting, and I'm part of that. I'm part of that. I just said it outright. I don't want him on either of the teams, and I don't even really fully understand why. But because he's a
I'm telling you
talented
that
player.
the CBA is everything. I feel like with why there's like legitimately no market.
That honestly makes so much sense. I feel like a fraud. I feel like I really didn't even notice the collective bargaining agreement. I'm doing some Googling right now. I'm like, oh my God, July of this year? Why don't I remember this? I didn't read any of it. So now I feel like I need to go read the complete NBA CBA tonight. I'm not going to do that.
The complete
Um,
NBA CBA.
all right. Well, that's, I feel like enough about Zach Levine, but yeah, interesting situation. I feel like that CBA does play
I did want to add that he averaged 25, 5, and 4 on 49% shooting and 38% from three last year.
last year.
He's a
Okay. You know
pretty
what?
he's a pretty bad defender though.
He is a pretty
Which
bad defender, and like you said, I think it's a contract. I think it's a contract.
yeah,
So not only to just to get him, you either have to have a star that you're willing, or like not a star, but like someone whose salary is closely matches his, or you need to have, um, yeah, or you just need to have like three guys that you can give to match the salary, and then it's like, oh, there goes your depth.
Yep.
So, all right, well, up next, I think this was a little bit of a quicker topic. There have been a couple surprise teams when it comes to the NBA standings. They've been talked about a lot, but they're continuing to be up, near the top ish of these conferences, and that is in the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Those are the 1 and 2 seeds in the West right now. In the Eastern Conference, the Orlando Magic are the 2 seed. And then the Indiana Pacers, they've fallen a little bit, but they are the 6th seed in the East, and that is still much higher than a lot of people were predicting before the season started, including myself. Um, so I guess I wanted to discuss these teams a little with you. How did I put it exactly? Let me see. Oh yeah, just which of these teams between the Timberwolves, Thunder, Magic, and Pacers, which teams have the highest ceiling, and like what would that ceiling be? I'll let you take the floor on this one first.
Okay. As far as specifically just the ceiling, not talking about which team is like the most surprising. I would say the Minnesota Timberwolves absolutely have the highest ceiling. I mean, that's a real legit roster. I mean, I don't think the bench is incredible by any stretch of the imagination. I think that overall that 3-point shooting could potentially fall as a team. Like they're shooting pretty well from beyond the arc. I could see that maybe bringing them down a little bit, but right now I think I think Anthony Edwards and his just playing FIBA, playing in the summer. I think it kind of changed everything for him a little bit. Having Steve Kerr as a coach, I saw like a lot of stuff about their relationship and him helping Anthony Edwards a lot, and essentially just challenging him a ton during the summer, and then he took over the team. And on a team with a bunch of young guys, he separated himself as the guy. Like I am the Michael Jordan of this team. I am the Kobe of this team. I think he's just brought that to the Timberwolves this season. Cat is I mean, Cat is you can say what you want about him. He has his flaws, has his issues. Certainly can't be the number one guy on a championship team, but man, that dude just only produces. That's all he does. He got drafted and then he just produces. And he's efficient. This dude's been shooting like 40% from three every year since we were like freshmen in high school. That's just what he does. He's he's great. Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns, that was the big thing. How are you going to make this work with two 7-footers? How are you going to make this work defensively? Like, I mean, we've already seen Gobert get exposed in the playoffs a bunch of times defensively. There is a roadmap to do it. How are the Timberwolves going to make this work? And they have. Simply, they have figured out a way to make it work with Cat and Gobert on the floor. And right now, I mean, I don't see any reason they can't be like legitimately contending in the Western. I mean, they are right now. So I don't see any reason going forward the Timberwolves can't contend in the Western Conference. I mean, and just shout out Kyle Anderson. Just always, I love Kyle Anderson. So
Slow mo. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. Yeah, a few episodes ago, I went all in about how the Pelican, or not the Pelicans, the Timberwolves they're a real team. They're the real deal, and I just did not expect it this year. I really, really didn't. I expected Anthony Edwards to be better this year too, but I did not expect how good of a defensive team this team is. But back to the question I had asked when it comes to ceiling, just for the sake of discussing a different team, I'll talk about the Thunder. I feel like the Timberwolves is the objective right answer. They're 15-4. It's just they're number one in the West. No one saw this coming. 15-4. That is tied for the best record in the NBA. That is clearly a good team that at this point in time is clearly contending. But the Oklahoma City Thunder are not far behind. They are 13-6, and as young as they are, I still think that they could go far. You let Shea Gilgeous get on a tear in the playoffs with Chet doing his thing. I don't know, man. They could easily surprise and beat some of these teams you just wouldn't expect them to beat. I'm trying to look at it, like right now they would play the Lakers, and they just killed the Lakers by like 40. Or no, that was the Sixers. Sorry, they did beat the Lakers by a lot though. And so it's like that. It would not be unfair to take the Thunder over the Lakers, and the Lakers have LeBron James and Anthony Davis and just made the conference finals. So this team's ceiling is also currently very high. I feel like some of these other teams. I feel like the Nuggets are going to creep their way up into the top two, and the Kings also might creep their way up because they've been a very good regular season team. But both of those two teams, I think, have very high ceilings. Um, I guess I should. I did talk about how they were surprising. Which team would you say is the most surprising? You can use the same answer if you'd like of the four.
I wouldn't. No, no. I do want to add actually one more thing to the Thunder, and then I'll give you the most surprising. There's one so just unbelievably clear answer for me. Um, the Thunder last year were like a relatively like poor defensive team, and just getting Chet Holmgren back solved all those problems. I mean, Jalen Williams is already a good defender. Isaiah Joe's a good defender. Lou Dort's a good defender, and then adding Chet basically just now they're one of the better defensive teams in basketball. And you have Shea, who's just a walking bucket. So many people on that team can score. So many teams can shoot. So many people on that team can shoot well from three. They're shooting 40% as a team this year from the 3-point line, shooting 49% from the field. They are, yeah, I mean, they're, like you said, they're young. And I think that's why mentally, to me, they don't have the highest ceiling. But
That makes sense.
I don't know. I could absolutely, yeah. Again with the same with the Timberwolves. I mean, there's no they can contend in the West. I'd say the idea of a championship to me is a lot more realistic for the Timberwolves, but I don't know. I would say either team I wouldn't necessarily pick to, but yeah,
I agree. Yeah, especially with how good the Thunder are shooting, it would make sense for them to potentially begin to slip, just because that's hard to keep that up. But um, talent wise, I feel like it makes sense. Like, and what we've seen in their 19 games, it makes sense where they're at. We didn't really talk about the Eastern Conference teams, but I don't. We did talk about the Pacers for the in-season tournament. When it comes to the Orlando Magic, uh,
that's the
God,
most surprising one to me.
yeah,
I
yeah,
I that team has been a dumpster fire my entire life. I mean, there was the Dwight Howard years for sure. Obviously, those were great, but I guess
mm-hmm.
since he's been gone, the franchise has just made every wrong decision at every turn. And honestly, like even looking at the roster now, it's I mean there's obviously so clearly like I can see why they're where they're at, and it is a good team, but like it's not jumping out to me as it's the 2 seed in the East.
Yeah, and I think that's why they will probably also fall. I think the Bucks are gonna take over that two spot, and as if the Sixers can, I don't know, find like maintain health, they should probably also pass them. But it wouldn't at this point in time. It wouldn't surprise me if the Magic are contending for at least a top six spot in the East, even maybe getting that 4 or 5, because they have been very good. I all of their young players I feel like have developed well into the roles they need to.
Except for Jonathan Isaac.
Jonathan Isaac, he's
I'm
had
shook. I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah. I like Jalen Suggs. He's found a very good role. He's like an insane defensive player, still athletic. He can do his thing, but Paolo and Franz Wagner, they're the main guys. Cole Anthony comes in. I'm pretty sure he comes in off the bench. I could be
Yep,
wrong on that.
he
And
does.
he's a very nice scorer off the bench. So they've got good pieces. And uh, depending on matchup, come playoff time, assuming they make it, uh, I wouldn't be surprised if they were to win a playoff series again, like a playoff series, depending on who it is. But we'll see. Last year the Cavs and Knicks played. If it was something like that, where they played the Knicks or the Pacers, even the Heat or the Cavs, they seeing them win, that would make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're one of the best defensive teams in basketball, and they got I would say a handful of guys that can go out and get buckets.
All
I
right.
would
Well,
not say maybe as consistently as you would hope for, but
yeah.
it's working.
All right. Well, we're passing. We're getting close to around the hour-ish point. Joe, do you have any last thoughts in the NBA? I feel like now we could start to wrap it up.
Any last thoughts in the NBA? I would like to. I think it's been pretty interesting how good Kristaps Porzingis has been this year. How he's kind of seamlessly fit into the Celtics, and that makes them to me extremely terrifying for every other team in the NBA.
Yeah, the Celtics, they just seem on one this year. You know, they've even had some inconsistent lineups at times because Porzingis has gotten hurt. I think Drew Holiday's missed a couple of games, and they just keep winning. They just keep pumping out these good regular seasons over and over again. It's kind of crazy, but that'll happen when your foundation is two All NBA guards, and then you add an All Star defensive guard with this 7-footer, also All Star that can uh, stretch the floor and shoot threes. So yeah, the Celtics are crazy. Porzingis is on my fantasy team, so
Oh
I
yeah,
very much liked him.
man, I lost a tough one in fantasy this week.
I, I I lost by a lot, but I lost to the leading scorer by who scored like more than 100 in everyone, probably all from Jokic.
It has been way more fun than I had anticipated.
I agree. It has been very fun. I should have you on another time, and we could maybe talk more about fantasy fantasy basketball. But I'm getting sleepy now, so I think it is time to call it. Well, thank you
Sounds
everyone for
good.
listening. Thank you, Joe, for being here. I appreciate it,
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
and I'll see you all next time.